So let's add some additional effects now. Right now when you shoot a meteor, it just disappears. So let's add a new particle effect. Rather than reusing the same one, let's create a new one. So let's go to Game Object, Particle System. And again, I'm just gonna kind of rush through this because particle systems themselves really require quite an explanation. I really can't do it justice here. So let's call this blast, since we already have burst. And depending on how long it takes, I might just do a cut and jump ahead. Okay, so let's take that, we drag and drop it into our asset area. We delete the original. And now what we need to do is when the meteor gets destroyed, we want the blast to be instantiated. So let's see what the best way to do that would be. So let's see if we can attach this to the beam attack. So I'm destroying other game object. Okay, so that might work. So we need to add the brackets since we're going to have more than one line after the if statement. And we need to make the beam attack aware of the new explosion. So public transform oops, put in the wrong place. There we go. Public transform, and we said this was called blast. Name doesn't have to match. So if we click on the I-beams, the new object, or the moment the new variable is there, now we just have to give it an object. So it's blast. And what we want it to do is instantiate. So instantiate blast at, see if I could just do other dot transform dot position. So in other words, the position of the other object. And but we want to use the rotation of blast. Because if you notice when we were making it, we rotated it around, so we have to make sure that it's using that rotation that we designated. Alright, let's see if that works. No error messages. Okay, they are looping, so I forgot to take care of that. So let's go to blast. But otherwise, it looked pretty solid. Okay, too long. This is more like a fountain. So I'll click on blast, and we'll reduce that to 0.6. 0.6. I think it's still slightly too long. At a certain point, it really just becomes a matter of preference. Whatever you feel looks best. But particularly when something is repeated over and over and over again, even a small problem, if it gets viewed, 100, 200 times, it becomes more obvious that it's a problem. I guess that's passable. Okay, brief cut there. All I did was I just dragged and dropped the audio file from the folder, and I just dragged it into here. Now this is actually incredibly easy. Since we want the sound effect to be synchronized with the blast, this is actually really easy and doesn't require any coding. So we've got our blast object, and you can add components to it, just like any other object. So you just drag and drop the sound component. Play and awake is already checked, which means that when the blast object gets instantiated with the sound effect, it will automatically play and awake, and it will not loop. So as soon as it's created, it will automatically play, and that should do it. You shouldn't have to do anything else with it. So currently this scrolls on endlessly, and if you're doing like a mobile game or something like that, that might be the kind of effect you're looking for, like an infinite running game or infinite flying game. If we're looking more at a old school 2D side scroller, then after a few minutes it comes to an end and you have a boss battle. So that's what we're working up to next. I took a brief break and I added the boss image, quite possibly one of those ridiculous things I've ever drawn, but it'll suffice. So before we add the boss, we need to have the area slow down. Now, a couple reasons why. A, it keeps you from having to draw even more, which is okay because you can have it draw endlessly. But the other thing is maybe you want a special area that the boss is in. Maybe you want special graphics for that, or maybe there's some environmental effect that you need, so you want it to come to a halt. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the scroll script, because that's what controls the scrolling of the mounds, and we're just going to put another timer in here. Just call this level timer. And level timer plus or equals, again, time dot delta time, so the change in time since the last time that was encountered. And what we're going to do is we're now going to alter this, not up here. We're going to create a new one, and we're going to change the velocity at certain times. So the level timer is, say, greater than 10 seconds, and less than 12. Then this will get slowed to 2. And we'll say if this is greater than 12, but less than 14, slow it to -1. That way it doesn't just come to a grinding halt, it's staggered. And we don't need an upper end for this one, just 1 is fine. So at those intervals, and I muted the sound so you won't be hearing the explosions. As you can see, it slowed, and then it stopped. So it's working. Now let's just make that a little bit smoother. So let's go back to our scroll script, and what we'll do is reduce this by only 0.5. That's much smoother, more gradual decrease in speed.